this episode, we look at the mystery of the Oak Island treasure pit. Who built it and what lies beneath? We search for the answers on the Revelation 13 podcast.
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. Welcome to the Revelation 13 podcast. Heaven is like a treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then in his joy he goes and sells everything he has and buys that field. Matthew chapter 13, verse 44.
Hello, I'm your host Mike Hopwood, and welcome to the Revelation 13 podcast. In that verse, Matthew 13:44, Jesus is comparing his coming kingdom to a treasure in a field that man finds, and when he finds it, he sells all to acquire it and to have the treasure. Jesus is telling us that salvation through him is worth everything you have, and any sacrifice you make in his service, whether it's time, money, family, ridicule, will be worth the struggle. And will be worth that struggle when you attain the prize. If you can keep a clear revelation of this, it can help you in life during your struggles and as you walk your Christian walk, because your better life awaits you in Christ's kingdom, and it will be better whoever or whatever you are, whether you're the richest person on the earth or the poorest person in the land. We have an interesting parallel to the parable today. On Oak Island in Nova Scotia, Canada, there's a tree-covered island that is one of 360 small islands in Mahoney Bay. In 1720, strange lights were seen off its coast, and when 2 fishermen went to investigate, they were never seen again. And after this incident, the people in the area generally stayed away from the island, which was a short boat ride across the shore, until October of 1795, a 16-year-old Daniel McGinnis went to Oak Island on a fishing expedition. While on the island, he noticed an oak tree with scarring that looked man-made, as if by a rope and tackle. And also there was a depression in the ground beneath the tree, and knowing that in the times past pirates had been in the area, the idea of treasure being buried below was not unreasonable to believe. And he returned the next day with 2 friends, Anthony Vaughn and John Smith, and they started digging in the depression. As they dug, they could see what looked like picket marks in the clay walls, and 2 feet down they found flagstones covering the pit. And 8 more feet down they found oak logs covering the pit, and at 10 more feet they found more logs, and at this point they were 20 feet down, and they couldn't dig anymore with their picks and shovels, and they vowed to return with better equipment and to find the treasure. 9 years later, with the financial backing of Dr. Simeon Linz and a local labor force, Daniel McGinnis and his friends returned to the site, which still looked undisturbed after all those years. Again, every 10 feet they found logs, and further down they found logs sealed with charcoal and ship's putty. Then they found a stone, not native to Nova Scotia, with a coded inscription. And they could not decode it, so John Smith, Daniel McGinnis' friend, who owned the island at the time, put it in his fireplace. The inscription was later translated to read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. At 98 feet, they hit wood and what they thought could be a hollow vault. They stopped the digging because night soon approached, and Sunday being the next day, they did no digging, and when they came back on Monday, they found the pit flooded 30 feet down. After failed attempts at pumping out the water, they put the digging on hold for a year, and when they came back, they attempted to make a shaft next to the old one to help release the water. The workers digging the new shaft were lucky to escape with their lives, and when the walls collapsed, and they soon gave up digging. As the years would go by, many people would take their chance at trying to find the treasure, and over the years they would find new clues and man-made objects, but so far, no treasure. But the stinging question is, who could have made this, and what were they hiding? There are still many theories, and we're going to take a look at what they are. Pirates would be the most obvious choice, with the strange lights in 1720 and the probable digging of the pit between the mid to late 1600s and the earliest parts of the 1700s. And there are a few notable pirates that can come to mind. Blackbeard had boasted of hiding his treasure where none but Satan and himself could find it. But unfortunately, there seems to be no evidence of Blackbeard conducting any operations to the north of Delaware, and he was killed before he could retrieve his treasure. Now, there have been stories since the 1600s that Captain Kidd had buried treasure on an island east of Boston, supposedly told by a dying sailor in the New England colonies. Gilbert Hedden, a New Jersey businessman, thought that he had a link to Oak Island and Kidd's pirate treasure when in 1936, using notes from a book called Captain Kidd and His Skeleton Island. The book had a map which looked very similar to Oak Island and directions which led him to a triangular rock formation that pointed in the direction of the treasure pit. When Hedden consulted the author of the book, the author told him that he only saw the charts once and that the map was only drawn from memory, therefore it was not reliable. Sir William Phelps, who was knighted by King James II for discovering the wreck of a Spanish galleon off the coast of Hispaniola in 1687. He returned to England with 28 tons of silver, and on the second voyage he failed to recover any more treasure. Speculation is that he stored the rest of the treasure on Oak Island to fund a revolution that would oust the king off the throne and replace him with William, Prince of Orange. Pirates and privateers are not the only groups or persons who may have buried treasure on Oak Island. Some feel that secret societies may have hidden their treasures there. Foremost on the list would be the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar were formed in 1114 AD. They were a small group that would protect pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. Traveling long distances could be dangerous due to thieves and their like, and over time they developed a credit system that allowed people to travel without money from place to place. This credit system made the Templars rich, and after the First Crusade, they had taken over the Temple Mount and had many years to search for lost treasures from the temple, undisturbed. And by 1307, they had amassed even greater wealth, and the Templars had, and with their banking system, the King of France, with the help of the Pope, started arresting Templars and disbanding the order, which was headquartered in France. No doubt they wanted the wealth and possibly any treasures found at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Templars were accused of worshipping Baphomet, a goat-headed demon. Any Templars caught were tortured for information and burned at the stake. But before the Grand Master of the order was burned at the stake, he proclaimed the king and the pope would answer for their crimes, and they both were dead within a year. Now, when the arrest started, it is thought that the Templars started moving their treasures from France